idea how much I would love not to be wrong about this. It would be no fun to be right. If you want to know more, please be my
Welcome back, everyone, to Grizzly Reviews. My name is Garrett, and today it is Halloween, which means it is time for the 6th annual Halloween special. I hope you've all been having an amazing Halloween and gotten a lot of candy, party, watched movies or television that makes you happy and engaged with the spooky, scary season. Halloween is my favorite holiday of the year, so I try to make the whole month of October everything Halloween as possible. It is crazy that I have been able to commit to making one video every Halloween. I know this year I made a lot less videos throughout the month of October, but if you follow me on TikTok, I do make a lot more content on there. But I have been watching a ton of movies this October, so be ready for a ranking of all the movies that I watched. It's going to be coming very soon. But today, for Halloween, I am going to be discussing the Cloverfield paradox. Trying to solve the energy crisis on Earth, a crew aboard a space station finds itself alone after a scientific experiment causes the Earth to disappear. Finding themselves in an alternate reality, the crew must fight to survive and make it back to their Earth. So for my second and third Halloween specials, I reviewed Cloverfield and 10 Cloverfield Lane. And both of those videos were filmed in the previous two places I lived. So for this year, I felt like Cloverfield Paradox was the right movie to review given my place in life. You know, new city, new place, might as well go back to Cloverfield and review the last movie in the anthology franchise. And this is a movie that is pretty special to me in general. This is one of the first movies I ever reviewed on this channel. What sucks about the Cloverfield paradox is that this is one of the few movies that is bad that I feel the need to talk about. But this more about my relationship to this movie than the movie itself. So we're going to go back in time. We're going to discuss the Cloverfield franchise as a whole. We're going to talk about the lead up to the Cloverfield paradox, and then we're going to discuss the Cloverfield paradox as a movie itself, because I do have a lot of thoughts. You're in theaters to see Transformers, and you see a trailer that shows the Statue of Liberty's head being thrown off and landing in the street. That's intense. That's a view you haven't seen before. And turns out this for a movie called Cloverfield. Nobody knows what this movie is. There's an ARG that leads up to it. If you want to know more about the Cloverfield ARG, hit up my second annual Halloween special review. And you go see Cloverfield in theaters, and it is a monster found footage movie. I love the first Cloverfield movie so much. Cloverfield was hella successful. The buzz around this movie was popping. People loved this movie despite its, found footageness and its shaky cam. There is a cult following for Cloverfield. So obviously we were going to get a sequel, but it's not a movie that you can really make a sequel for because it is found footage. So they made it an anthology series with 10 Cloverfield Lane. Now this movie also had an ARG leading up to it that if you listen to the podcast Cloverfields with Steve Zaragoza and Mike Falzone, you follow the ARG as it was developing. You get to know all of the fun tidbits and stuff that was happening in 10 Cloverfield Lane. Go watch my 10 Cloverfield Lane review if you want to see a full rundown of the ARG for that movie, and for my thoughts in general, because I do think 10 Cloverfield Lane is the best movie in the franchise in terms of being a film, quote unquote. I like the ending of that movie. A lot of people don't, but I will fight you on that. I think the ending of that movie is exactly what it needed to be. I love its third act so much. So it's the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, and if you follow the same guys that did Cloverfields, they have a podcast called Dynamic Banter. During this podcast, we get a little bit more information. Hey, they might be making a third Cloverfield movie. And there is an ARG that was slowly rolled out. There was a website that you could go to. I don't remember if it was the Tagarotter website that was like redone into something different. But unfortunately, the ARG for Cloverfield Paradox is pretty weak. The news footage that you see in Paradox of the guy warning what might happen if they use the Cloverfield station, which is what the station is called, and then Shepard is what the collider is called. We'll get that out of the way first, but he is warning us that if we use this, it might open multiple realities, things might be smashed together. It would like devastate reality as we know it. And unfortunately, that's kind of all that we got in the ARG. It's very simple and it's not great. Editing Garrett here. So something I forgot to mention, there were some more parts of the ARG, but a lot of like the website stuff is what I know about. There was a slusho food truck at a convention where if you figured out this code, you would be up for a prize, and that prize is like a slusho figure, which is pretty cool. And then the website I was talking about did have various different images that would often be updated, but there wasn't like a mass social media ARG or like a bunch of extra stuff made for the ARG. It was just simply using footage and stuff from the movie itself. So in college, when I got super into horror, I already knew about Cloverfield and 10 Cloverfield Lane. I already loved those movies. I already owned those movies physically. And I wanted to show them to my roommates and friends so bad. I got them obsessed with Cloverfield. I got them thinking about the satellite thing that you see falling at the end of the first movie. We had a great time with those movies. And I was filling them out on the bare bones ARG that was being rolled out for Paradox. And then February 4th, 2018 rolls around, where the Philadelphia Eagles are playing against the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. One of my roommates was a Patriots fan, so I was rooting hardcore for the Eagles, and it was a back and forth affair. It's my favorite Super Bowl. One, the game was fantastic. Two, during the Super Bowl, I don't remember if it was like in the later stages of the second quarter or the very beginning of the second half, but a trailer comes on and it's showing footage of Cloverfield. I'm screaming like this is everything I have been wanting, and I wanted some viral marketing for Paradox because of what the two previous movies did beforehand. I wanted something fun and interesting for the second one. So we get this random trailer for Cloverfield Paradox saying that we're going to find out what caused everything to happen. I have to put the pause in between every and thing because all of the marketing for Paradox does this. It's just like something that the Cloverfield movies do with their like little like word splash on their posters and stuff. And at the end of this trailer, it reveals that Cloverfield Paradox will be available on Netflix at the end of the Super Bowl. I could not be more happy. I was already watching a fantastic football game with my friends. It was giving me everything I could have wanted. I was hyped. Unfortunately, I had to wait a week to watch the movie because my friends were tired, which is fine. And I wanted to be the good friend that waited for them and not like went behind their backs and watched a movie that I was really excited for. If you want to see the video of the week and day leading up to us watching the Cloverfield Paradox, I do believe it is the video titled Austin's Takeover. I think that is a few days lead up to us watching Cloverfield Paradox. We sit down, we're in my little dorm room at college in Nova Southeastern University. We watch the Cloverfield Paradox, and then we record a podcast for it. And the podcast is still available on YouTube. It's The Professors, Episode 1, The Cloverfield Paradox. I have not re-listened to this since putting it out. I am very scared to watch it. This was very early on in my content creation world. I didn't edit the podcast down. I just kind of just went right into it. I don't even know like how in depth of a discussion we get about the Cloverfield paradox. So if you want to go watch that, I totally recommend it. You don't have to. Everything I'm listing is all on YouTube. Like the history of the Cloverfield paradox is deep within the bones of my YouTube channel. This was so early in my career of reviewing movies and discussing movies that the hype of watching a movie itself made me happy, and I wasn't going to really notice or point out negative things throughout it. So I would love to see how my opinions have changed from when I first watched that movie and recorded that podcast to now. I think it's going to be like a fun juxtaposition of how far along and how sure of my own film opinions I have gotten. After Cloverfield Paradox came out, Dynamic Banter made a review episode on it, and then they did a live show where they end up discussing Paradox even more. I highly suggest listening to those 2 episodes of their podcast as well. I love those boys so much. They're so fun. They just inspire me so much. The reception of Cloverfield Paradox was not taken well. Currently, out of 157 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes by film critics, only 22% of them are positive, and then the audience score is sitting at like 41%. And this is all aggregation. If you don't really know Rotten Tomatoes, I'm not here to explain that to you. Why did people not like this movie? Well, because it's a liar. The Cloverfield paradox does not answer how the other Cloverfield movies happen. And from here on out, I am going to do spoilers for the Cloverfield paradox. It is high time in my Halloween special that we start discussing the Cloverfield paradox actually. So if you haven't seen Cloverfield Paradox, I do recommend go watching it. It is a pretty okay time. There are definitely worse movies you could be watching, and I just recommend all the Cloverfield movies in general. Like the fact that you get such a high budget sci-fi horror thriller like this with the cast that you're getting, it is pretty special in that. But it is a bad Cloverfield movie. So in Cloverfield, and the story of what is happening in Cloverfield, including the ARG, is that there is this monster hidden in the bottom of the ocean that this one company is getting a substance for their drinks that makes them like so addicting and so delicious. And in the process of that, they awaken this monster. At the end of the movie, there is like a satellite thing that comes down in the background that's just like some big mystery. And perhaps the landing of that is also what awakened the monster, but there is like a month in between. So I don't know if they're intertwined, but that's what happens in that movie. And then, spoilers for 10 Cloverfield Lane, there is an alien invasion where they can spray like a very toxic gas that kind of like breaks down and is like acid to your body, and it will like decompose you as you're just standing there. And we end the movie with Mary Elizabeth Winstead feeling the urge to go fight for humanity in this war against the alien invasion. And that's really all that you see in 10 Cloverfield Lane. We don't really learn anything about the aliens because this movie is a girl stuck in a bunker and she has to get out of the situation kind of movie. It is not a traditional alien invasion movie like a War of the Worlds. I do think it would be fun to see like a bigger perspective of that Earth, considering these are all different Earths. We're talking about multiverses right now, which begs the question, in 2018, did the Cloverfield paradox start the multiverse hype in film that we've gotten since? I don't know. I don't really know what the first movie to beg the question of what the multiverse is, but we are going to alternate realities in Paradox. We go to one alternate reality, and then you can do the math that in the other Cloverfield movies, they are different Earths. because of the size perspective. At the end of Paradox, we safely get back to our Earth, and you see a giant Cloverfield monster come through the clouds. And knowing the lore of the first Cloverfield movie is that the Cloverfield monster in New York is a baby. And I don't know where we are at with the Gugu Mbatha-Raw and her husband in this movie. I don't know where they live. We don't really get any information of that sort. So I don't know if like the monsters were planted in different parts of the earth, because the new one is so much bigger in Paradox than the baby sized one that is demolishing New York City. The problem is you cannot logically make any of this movie make sense. Nothing in Paradox explains the alien invasion and the second movie, and how they use the Cloverfield monster in this movie in relation to everything that we see in the first movie is different. Same with 10 Cloverfield Lane, but 10 Cloverfield Lane is an actual good movie, is that this wasn't a Cloverfield movie. It's developed as its own sci-fi thriller, and then probably wasn't going to get picked up. They probably knew it was a dud of a movie already. So they're like, okay, let's add Cloverfield. Let's film some guy talking in a newsreel, some ADR talking about the Cloverfield station, and then we'll make a big budget Cloverfield monster to end the movie. And it looking like that's how the end of the first Cloverfield movie ends, with the satellite station thing landing down in Coney Island. And then they didn't release any trailers for it outside of the one during the Super Bowl, so you don't actually know what movie you're going into. It just makes the promise that this is going to answer everything that happens within the other Cloverfield movies. And it does not. And it's very outraging as a Cloverfield fan when it's saying it's going to answer these questions, and it logically doesn't. If that marketing didn't happen, and if it wasn't trying to answer the questions of Cloverfield, but you still get some Cloverfield hints in there, I don't mind Cloverfield being an anthology franchise. I know there's still reports about an actual Cloverfield sequel being made, but the news that I put in the 10 Cloverfield Lane video, I haven't seen any news reports since then, so I don't think that movie is actually happening. I would love it to, but I don't think we need a Cloverfield sequel from what we see in 2008 at all. So if you just rip out all of the stuff that's trying to connect the Cloverfield movies, and you have a sci-fi thriller, multiverse, alternate reality movie, it's fine. And I really like the cast of this movie. Gugu Mbatha-Raw plays Hamilton, and this was the first thing I saw her in before she did the Loki series, and she's fantastic in both projects. There is a lot of good writing around her character that makes some interesting moral, ethical dilemmas. Her children on her real Earth died in an accident when she was trying to siphon energy. And in the alternate reality Earth, her kids are still alive. So does she decide to go to this Earth and take over being their mom, prevent them from being dead? Or does she go back to her own Earth? I think that's a really fun, interesting dilemma. The setup at the beginning of this movie with the energy crisis that's happening on Earth and all of these countries possibly going to war, and every single person on the Cloverfield station is from a different country, and there's some tensions boiling up between the Russian and the German. I think that's really interesting stuff. Unfortunately, that never really goes somewhere. There is a little bit possible intrigue as to if someone is sabotaging, but that is like the alternate reality because they're also having an energy crisis. Their war has been going on for 14 months in the alternate reality. We're going to call it Earth 2. And on Earth 1, we have not hit that yet. Although we do think the Cloverfield monster that is attacking the city that we're in, again, unnamed city, but we think that could be possible attacks. Literally, the beginning of this movie could be the movie ISS from last year with Ariana DeBose, that garbage movie that's like political intrigue. Americans and Russians are in a space station, Both of them are getting different instructions for their governments about taking the space station over. That is what the setup of Cloverfield Paradox gives. And then it drops us into a little sci-fi horror movie. That's not too bad. Do I think the PG-13 of this movie sucks? Yes, I do think there are some deaths and some possible gore in this movie that could have been taken higher with an R rating, because there is like an amputation in this movie, but because it's sci-fi and it's weird, the arm still moves and you just see like a total like slice of his arm and you can see all the bone and muscle in there. It's like when binging with Babish cuts a sandwich in half and he shows you like the inside cut of the sandwich. That's what I'm talking about. I do think for a PG-13 movie, it has a great F-bomb in it. This is after Chris O'Dowd's arm gets cut off and you later see it like scratching and trying to move about the floor. And it goes, "That's my fucking arm." And I like that. I think it's very funny. And I like Elizabeth Debicki as a character in this movie. I do want more depth overall to everyone. She was in the space station in Earth 2 that when the energy like flipped and you get like the switching of the realities, her space station crashed down in the ocean, but she is like put into the walls of the new one. And she knows how the other space station was sabotaged and who it was. And she is trying to take control of this ship. And I do like the idea of that. I do think there needs to be some sort of villain that's not part of our crew, because otherwise, like, the trust and everything that we built throughout the movie isn't there when Elizabeth Debicki is like a perfect person for that to happen. She looks so weird as Jensen. I don't know if it's like the haircut or the lighting, but she looks creepy. So one of the aspects in Cloverfield Paradox that really brings it down is that on Earth 1, you are following Gugu Mbatha-Raw's husband. He is a therapist or someone that works at a hospital and is driving to work when the crisis is happening. He finds this girl and he's stuck in the bunker, and he's in this bunker the rest of the movie, and there's no like resolution or purpose to his character. There is a bit of like terror at the end of the movie when he's realizing that there's this like big event going down, and Gugu Mbatha-Raw and Daniel Brühl are like crashing down in their little escape pod onto the earth, and he's like, "No, don't come, tell her to don't come." And the guy on the radio is like, "Well, we couldn't, they're already gone." So there is a bit of like rising tension at the very end of the movie from him, and there's just really no point to the scenes of him and the little girl outside of like runtime filler, because if you take it out, the movie is like 10 minutes shorter. There's really not a lot of time spent between him. There is like a shadow of a monster in some smoke, but like he's pretty safe throughout the movie, even though the monster is bigger and there's stuff like kind of happening. His stuff is so boring. Cloverfield Paradox is a well shot movie though. You can tell that they put a lot of money into the space stuff because everything in space looks really good. The cinematography and production design is great. There's a lot of stuff filmed at an angle. I don't know if you can necessarily call it Dutch. There is just a lot of shooting it from like a low angle or something like higher. There's a lot of angled shots in this movie, which makes it visually distinct from the other Cloverfield movies in the franchise. Like every movie feels different, which is nice. I really like how the window in the room that she's staying in is a screen and she can just like be up close to videos of her family. And the poster of this movie has her in the O of Cloverfield like that. And I do really like the image of her laying at that window. It's really nice. There is some like dumb, I have to sacrifice myself so everyone else can survive stuff from the captain of the ship Keel, played by David Oyelowo. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm so sorry if I did that wrong. And then there's just like a 3D printed gun throughout this movie that has just like unlimited shots. How does it have so many shots? And why is it not causing more damage when we're shooting stuff within the ship? I don't know. I do think the end of this movie is pretty fun. I like how we defeat Elizabeth Debicki in the movie. I think us using that glass is really exciting, and seeing her just shoot off into space, the cold emptiness and soundless space, I think is a really cool shot. And I like the horror that is in this because, again, it is very different from the rest of what the Cloverfield franchise has to offer. It's just, again, a really weak Cloverfield movie that is trying to explain everything that came before. In the third installment, you have two instances of alien monster stuff happening on Earth, and you want to explain it now? On movie number 3? Doesn't make sense. I do also want to say I love the score done by Bear McCreary. If you don't know who that is, he does a lot of the music for The Walking Dead, and he did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. score, and I think he does a really good job with this movie, and I want him to be a bigger household name because he does good stuff. Like, the score of this movie is way better than the movie deserves, and I have to give props for that. I feel like that's all I have to say about the Cloverfield Paradox. I think it's a fine sci-fi thriller movie out of context as a Cloverfield movie, but they wanted to make it so people would actually watch it, so they had to attach the Cloverfield name to it, which is fine. I like that that was an attempt to keep the franchise alive, and unfortunately 7 years later we still haven't gotten another installment. I think this could be a fun, every 2 years you get a new sci-fi horror anthology thriller that would be really fun, and you can make them for cheap. You don't have to make them super expensive. Go back to found footage. I think the first one is fantastic as a found footage movie, and it doesn't need to be anything more than that. Paradox is fine. It's filmed well. The cast is outstanding. Like, the names that you have in this movie are huge heavy hitters, and it's really shocking that they were able to gather this cast together. As a big fan of the IT crowd, I love that Chris O'Dowd is in this movie. Gugu Mbatha-Raw, again, another person that I'm loving in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's really good visual effects throughout the movie. I think it's just a fine time outside of the context of the Cloverfield name. It's engaging. I care about the main character throughout the whole time. There's some interesting moral dilemmas through it that makes you think and put yourself in the main character's perspective. What would you do? Which Earth would you stay at? That's a big question. I would like to know your thoughts on that. But in the end, I have to give the Cloverfield Paradox a 7 out of 10. It's just unremarkable and very confusing as a Cloverfield movie. You kind of can't make anything make sense within the other movies. You just have to accept it for what it is, enjoy the ride, have a good time, maybe garden or drink a little bit, whichever you prefer. And it's an okay movie at that point. So that is going to conclude the 6th annual Halloween special. What are your thoughts on the Cloverfield movies? How would you rank them? I think that's a fun video I can make for another day, so let me know if you want me to do that. Otherwise, I hope you have an amazing Halloween. Like this video if you liked it. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. Until then, I will see you later. Bye-bye. Also, can we talk about the setup? This might be my favorite video setup I've ever had. This is more special because it is the Halloween special video, so I moved to the couch, like, from here to over here, so you got more of everything in the room in frame. But I just think it makes this video that much more special, and I just love how it looks. I'm really happy with myself for how this video visually turned out. I just hope that the rest of it is as good.